All right, everybody, welcome to Live from My Drum Room. My guest today is four-time Grammy Award winning drummer, composer, and educator, my dear friend, the legendary Antonio Sanchez. Antonio is probably best known for his long association with the Pat Metheny Group, but his list of credits is truly staggering. In 2014, Antonio scored the music for the Academy Award winning film Birdman, which earned him nominations for the Golden Globe Award for Best Original Score and a BAFTA Award for Best Film Music. He won the Critics' Choice Movie Award for Best Score and Satellite Award for Best Original Score. He's released more than a dozen recordings as a leader or co-leader, and one of Antonio's latest projects is Apple TV's The Studio, which he scored entirely and is streaming now on Apple TV. In fact, I watched the first episode last night. It's great. It's great. I'm so honored to have Antonio here with me today. So please welcome my dear friend for many, many years, the great Antonio Sanchez, live from my drum room.
Johnny D,
And there you are. Welcome, my friend.
amazing to be here with you. Thank you for the
It's
invitation, as always.
it's amazing to have you with me, Antonio. Thank you for doing this on the road. I want to let everybody know that Antonio is on tour right now, and he's been so kind and generous to make time to do this today on a travel day. I think, right? You're heading out this afternoon.
Yeah, I'm in Minneapolis right now. I'm playing with this new, very exciting trio with Bella Fleck and Edmar Castaneda. I call it the most unlikely trio on the planet because it's banjo, harp, and drums. It's
Man,
been a blast, and we played a couple of nights here, and then we're heading to Knoxville, Tennessee, to do the Big Ears Festival tomorrow.
that's fantastic, and it's going well. I'm sure you guys are getting great crowds. I'll bet.
Yeah, it's been Bella is amazing. I mean, he's the
Yeah.
the man in banjo. I mean, literally nobody else that can do what he does. And then Edmar Castaneda, who for those who are not too familiar with him, he's from Colombia and he plays a Colombian harp, but it's a chromatic harp, and he's basically the bass player and the guitar player in the band. And then Bella on banjo and me on drums, and it's a really fun music. It's a collective trio. We all brought tunes, and it's been a blast. The album is coming out May 13th, I think. And it's called The Beat Trio.
The Beat Trio. Yeah, great, great. Well, man, I just want to say, first of all, how happy I am to see you, to have you here today. And I want to thank you again and congratulate you, Antonio, for what you have done. I mean, I thought about this when I saw you at PASIC a few months ago, and it was so great because we hadn't seen each other in a while. And I was thinking, 30 years, man, 30 years. It was 1994, I think, when I first met you, a young
That's right.
22-year-old, 21, 22-year-old student at Berkeley. And our dear friend Victor Mendoza, man, he's the one that called me and said, "You have to come see this drummer, Antonio Sanchez. He's playing with me at Scullers, I think it was." And, I mean, I'm not making this up. You know that. It,
Well, I now I have to tell you my side of the story because I'll never forget it. Of course, this was at first time we met was actually at the 1A recital hall at Berkeley, and Victor Mendoza was doing something with Mallet Cat, I think, and
yeah,
it was like a demo. I think it was Percussion Week, and then he invited me to play with him. And at that time, I had one of those entry level endorsements with another cymbal company.
right.
And I remember I went, I was so happy that anybody was paying any attention to me and offered me that discount. So I immediately said yes. Then I went to the factory, picked up some cymbals, and I was in heaven, because finally I'm an endorsed artist, and this was fresh into Berkeley. And then I got the bill and the mail of of what I had gotten at the factory, and I was like, I have nothing that is near to this amount of money to pay for these symbols, so I had to give them back. And then fortuitously, you came to that gig at Berkeley, And then you took me aside, like, so I heard you had a little discount with this other company. We're willing to give you the full ride with Siljan. And I'm like, what? Because of course Siljan was, that's what I really wanted to play. But, I never thought I could get nowhere near Siljan. And then you came from, you descended from the heavens and offered me a deal, and I will forever be thankful to you for
Oh
that, man.
man, Antonio, thank you, my brother. Man, well, I guess yeah, it must have been a later time that I saw you playing with Victor, maybe at Scullers, and maybe that was already along the way to our friendship. And what I think about when I think about you as a young drummer at Berkeley is how like mature and developed you were as a musician at such a young age. When so many, young players, and I say this with the utmost respect for young players, that they have a lot of technique and they want to show everybody all their technique. And you played like you played at age 22 the way you played with Pat Metheny at 32, like with that level of
No, no,
mature.
that's not true at all.
No, man,
I appreciate that. But I mean, I have to be totally honest with you. I mean, I'm glad you caught me at the time where you caught me, because if you would have caught me just a year before, I was one of those guys where I just had to show everything I could do all at the same time in every context. It didn't matter the style. I had I came from Mexico, and I didn't have amazing guidance over there, but I was very studious and I was very dedicated. And I came into Berkeley with a lot of chops and a
yeah,
lot of energy, and I really, really wanted to learn, but I had no concept whatsoever and of what it was to play jazz. I played some Latin jazz, some fusion, no straight ahead experience really. So I didn't know the vocabulary. And on my first semester, I always tell this story, usually on clinic, so that people understand what happened. That I was walking around the hallways my first semester, and I had my stick bag, and Ron Savage, great teacher from
yeah,
Berkeley,
yeah,
he saw me and he said, "Hey, you play drums, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah. Why?" Because there's an 8 semester advanced bebop ensemble right now that is about to play, and the drummer didn't show up. I don't know. Do you want to play? And I'm like, "Yes, of course." So I was like, "Man, this is my chance to shine." This is my first semester, and I'm gonna play with an 8 semester ensemble. So I'm sure they're gonna skip me 7 semesters and then graduate me right then and there because I'm such a badass. So I brought in my whole kit, which back then, uh, it was a fusion kit. It was a Power V Special, a Yamaha, with
yeah.
a 10, 12, 14 power toms, 22-inch bass drum, my piccolos in there, and I had like 12 cymbals and 2 hi-hats and a double bass drum pedal. And I show up with this thing, my bebop ensemble. And as I'm setting up, all the students they're already playing because the drummer didn't show up, so I was a little late. And I was determined to set up the whole thing to
Yeah.
play with them. And as they're playing, they're looking at me like, what is this guy doing? And I finally set everything up and I start playing. And immediately I was like, man, I have an hour and a half to show everybody what a genius I am. So I just was just playing everything I knew how to play. And then Ron just proceeded to take one cymbal away, another cymbal, one tom, two toms, three toms, all the cymbals, and he just left me with hi-hat, right cymbal, bass drum, and snare drum. And he was like, okay, now solo, take a solo. And, I sounded like I had just woken up from a 10-year coma. And it was the most humiliating thing that ever happened to me, and the best thing, because
Yeah, yeah,
that really put me in my place. And I was like, okay, I think it's very important to realize that I don't know anything about this music, but I want to learn it. And luckily, I had enough chops already, and enough technique, and enough hunger to start making strides quickly.
yeah. That's a great story, and I had made a note, the Ron Savage story, because I wanted to have you.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you told it, and I think one part I remember when you told this story many years ago, probably when I first met you, was as Ron was doing this, taking each piece away. You're looking, and you're going, well, man, as long as he doesn't take my double pedal away, I'll be cool,
That's
right?
right.
Or something
That's
like
right.
that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then he
I
takes that
still
away, and
had
you're
it. Yeah.
like,
Yeah, I mean, because he completely, took away my whole kit, but I still had my double pedal. So I was still doing things with my double pedal just because
yeah,
I knew I was about to die. I was drowning, but I was still trying to do something cool. And then he got annoyed and he just took out a drum key and knelt down and removed my slave pedal, took it away. And I was like, okay, now, now this is it. I'm
yeah.
I'm officially dead. So it was
Great,
like I
man.
said, one of the worst days of my life and one of the best days of my life. I'll forever be thankful to him because he didn't want to humiliate me. He just wanted to really to teach me a lesson.
Yeah,
And then after the ensemble was done, everybody left and he stayed with me and he was like, okay, let's talk, because I can see that you have put a lot of effort into practicing and you can play, but what have you been listening to? So I gave him a list of, I had been listening to a lot of fusion and Chick Corea Electric Band and Alan Holdsworth and those kinds of drummers, Dennis Chambers, Vinny, Steve Gadd, Weckel. And then he said, "Okay, well, let's put you in the right track if you want to learn bebop and straight ahead." So he started giving me discography, and when I heard My Funny Valentine 4 and More with Tony Williams for the first
yeah.
time, that was the same reaction I had when I heard like the Police for the first time, or Rush for the first time, or Zeppelin for the first time. It was like, wow, what the hell is this? I want to learn it. I want to get inside the music, and I want to play this. So that was the beginning of the rest of my life.
Yeah, yeah, man. Well, and when you came to Berkeley, I mean, you had already, for a young player, had established yourself pretty well in Mexico City too, right? I mean, you started playing really young and professionally really young.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I started playing when I was 5, just because my mom has a brother that brother had a girlfriend, and that girlfriend had a brother who was a drummer. So we came to just visit the family of my uncle's girlfriend, and there was still a Ludwig Vistalite sitting on the living room, and I was just by the look of it. And the thing is, because of my mom, I had already been listening to rock for many, many, many years, well, many, many years, 5 years, because I was 5. So, I mean,
it's
for
a
me,
long,
it was many years.
that's a long time. Yeah.
That's a lot. That's my whole life. I've been listening to rock. So immediately, I kind of put together the sound with the sight of the instrument. And I was like, oh my god! And then this guy, his name was Fito. He came downstairs and he played a little bit, and just the energy of the instrument just kind of blew me away. And yeah, then I started practicing a lot. I had my rock bands in Mexico. I was playing in the rock circuit, different clubs and stuff like that. And then I started playing a little bit of Latin jazz, a little fusion, and I was playing in some of the jazz clubs in Mexico as well. So, but it was all very, it didn't feel very professional, to be honest. I was making a little money and stuff like that, but I was doing gymnastics at the same time. And I was taking it very serious. I was in the junior team for a couple of years. I
Wow.
was really
Okay.
good at floor exercise. So between music, I was going to the conservatory, and piano was my major, actually.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yep.
And then that was in the morning, and then I would go to high school in the afternoon. Then I go to train gymnastics in the evening, and it was just a little too much for me at the time. And that was right before I went to Berkeley. And then when I went to Berkeley, I switched to drums as a major, and the rest is history.
Yeah. And you graduated from Berkeley in 96,
97.
97. Okay.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
when,
some people graduate very quickly.
yeah.
I really wanted to take my time. I needed the time at Berkeley, because, like I said, I had a lot of holes in my playing, especially um, uh, stylistically and conceptually. So I really wanted to be there for a while, and I was an international student, and it was still around the time where you could stretch your student visa thankfully for quite a while. So I was at Berkeley for 4.5 years, and the last couple years I had like, 2 credits, and I was just playing around Boston all the time, and
Yeah.
and touring actually already, and but maintaining my visa, which now is impossible.
Yeah. Now I remember that. I remember you were like gigging a whole bunch because I would go see you whenever I could when you were playing, whether it was with Victor or somebody else.
Right.
And then so how soon, just to sort of jump ahead a second, I feel like it was like a year or two later you were playing with Pat Metheny, right? Was it like 98, 99?
No, no, no. So I got to Berkeley at 93, in 93.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then I graduated 97, and that summer wasn't when I first got my first gig in the big leagues,
Hmm.
if you want to call it that way, which was with Paquito de Rivera and the
Yes.
United
Yes.
Nation Orchestra, which was the band that Dizzy Gillespie used to lead up to his death. And then Paquito took over, and then Danilo Perez, which I was also playing with, um, he recommended me for that gig. And then after that gig, I started formally playing with Danilo. And then a couple of years later, that's when Pat saw me playing in Europe with Danilo. We had a double bill with him, and it was funny because I back then I was playing with left foot clave. I had a set of bongos on my left. I had a conga, and I had a flat timbale as my second tom, and I had a bunch of cowbells and stuff like that. So it was a hybrid between a drum set and a percussion set, and we were playing some rhythmically very complex and interesting stuff with like 5/4 clave, 7/4 clave.
Mm.
So, the story goes that I we were playing, and Pat was having dinner backstage after he had played, and the promoter asked him, "So, do you like Danilo's trio?" And he said, "Trio? No, no, it's I like the way the percussion player and the drummer are playing together." And he's like, "No, no, no, it's the same guy." And then that caught his attention, and he went to just to check out what I was doing. And since then, I kind of, I guess, stayed in his mind a little bit. And that same tour, we ran into each other again in London, and he came to our gig. And then we exchanged emails, and he sent me a really beautiful email where he told me everything he had liked about the gig and about my playing. And then it was like a little bit of a questionnaire on, almost like a job application. Do you like touring, and how do you feel about this and about that, and do you like playing many styles of music? And then at the end it said, are you around next week, do you want to jam? And I was like, oh my God, yes, I'm around, and yes, let's do it. And I went to his studio, and we jammed just duo for like 4.5 hours, and that's it. Just a few months later, he offered me the gig for the Pat Metheny group.
And what year was that, Antonio? Was that
That was we started playing and jamming in 99,
yeah,
and
okay.
then 2000, no, in the 2000, I'm sorry, and then 2001 is when we recorded the first album,
Right.
Speaking of Now. And then 2002, we that's when we started really touring for 22 years. Yeah.
Man. Well, I just remember seeing you at a NAM show and you saying to me, I hadn't seen you in a couple of years, I guess, at that point, and you just I s- almost matter of factly, very humbly said, I'm going to be playing with Pat Metheny or something like that. And I went, oh my God. And you were like, and you were happy, obviously but you were very humble about it. Again, it was just like your humility. You weren't, I mean, that's how you are. So I'm just saying, I just
Oh,
remember I was so happy for you. And so
thank
if
you.
I can say, yeah, proud of you just because I'd known you for so long at that point. And um,
Oh,
yeah. And
thanks,
then,
Johnny.
yeah,
Yeah,
man.
I mean I mean, if I didn't, maybe it was a few months after I had found out I was going to play with them, but the day I found out I was actually getting the gig, because I knew this was going to be a life-changing gig,
Yeah.
in terms of visibility, in terms of my financial situation, in terms of everything, you know.
Yeah.
So I was very nervous. It was like what a player must feel like before signing to the NBA. Is it going to happen or not? And well, I really felt like I had signed with the Yankees, at that point. And eh, I had never toured that much. I had never. I had been touring already, but Pat's thing was on a completely different level, and I knew this was going to be a game changer for me. And because of him, Gary Burton saw me playing, Michael Brecker saw me playing, Chick Corea saw me playing, and then I got to play with all these people, which were my gods before I moved from Mexico to the States. Those were the guys I was checking out,
Yeah.
Brecker and Paquito and Chicoria Electric Band was the my gateway uh, drug into jazz. When I
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
heard that, I was like, "What is this?" Because at that point, I had only been playing. Rush was as complex as it got for me, and then I heard that, and I was like, okay, there's so much more out there than I even realized. And then that the fact that I ended up playing with Chick Corea, to me was just mind boggling.
Yeah.
So I will forever be thankful to Pat for having given me the chance.
Fantastic, man. And just I mean just to talk about that for a second. I mean now it's been, 25, 22 years as you say, 23 years and the comfort level is there and all that. But when you first started playing with Pat, obviously you're nervous, you want to make your best impression. Was he because he was familiar with your playing at that point, did he give you the sort of leeway to just let you be you? And I know he has very specific ideas with cymbals, right? Flat ride and
Yeah, I mean, the main thing was that I was coming into a band that had already a long history,
yeah,
decades, as a matter
yeah,
of fact. So, we recorded the new album, speaking of now, and that uh, album, when I hear it now, I mean, it's a gorgeous album. I think compositionally and melodically, I mean, the melodic material in this album is incredible, what they wrote. But when I hear it, I feel like I sound the way I thought they wanted me to sound versus the way I just should have done my thing. But I really was aiming to please at that point. But nobody had played that music before me, so I kind of had carte blanche on how to do it. But then all the previous material that we were also playing and that had been played by Danny Gottlieb and by Paul Vertigo, of course, Pat had a very, had that sound in his head.
hmm
So everything I played, even if I was mimicking what they had played before, sounded completely different to him because my touch is different, my feel is different, everything.
yeah,
My cymbals were different, and
yeah,
and it took a while for everybody to get acclimated. And he was definitely giving me a lot of instructions on a nightly basis because it's very specific music, and he would go as far as like, okay, I want you to play on this cymbal, and then until at this point where you're going to switch to that cymbal, then blah. So in the beginning, it was a little too much for me. It was a little overwhelming, but I was like, okay, this is a one in a lifetime opportunity, and I'm not going to put my ego, in front of the music and be like, hey man, I play what I play. At that point, I was so green still in my
yeah,
head
yeah,
that I was like, I just want to learn, and I just want to, this is a challenge, and I want to take the bull by the horns, and of course it paid off. He started getting used to me, to my sound, to the way I would phrase, and then after a while, he just let me be, and his music has a very specific syntax and language and vocabulary, and it's almost like, it comes from bebop, of course, but you're not playing bebop, but you're interacting as bebop, and you have
right.
have to have the bebop touch, but it's not bebop at all. So it's the fact that I came more from straight eights than from swing because of my background coming from Mexico and rock and roll and fusion, all that stuff. I think it was good because that band was mostly straight eight based, but the interaction with the solos and everything is like if you were playing, bebop with Charlie Parker. That
Yeah.
was the concept, and it was a steep learning curve, and especially the length of the concerts. I just was not used to that at all.
Unbelievable.
Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, we were playing the first couple of months on the first tour. We were playing 3 hours 45
Yeah.
straight,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and 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 I was playing with so much intensity that I started feeling it. And I was young, so I
Yeah.
was able to do it. But I had stuff in my shoulders, in my arm, my hip. Everything was hurting all the time because I was giving it so much on a nightly basis. And then we cut it down to 3 hours 15, which actually made a big difference. But I had to learn how to pace myself because it was rock and roll intensity and volume, but with very, precise fusion jazz, intricacy and delicacy.
Yeah.
So we would get to play incredibly loud and big, and also we would play insanely soft, but very intense with a lot of intensity. So those peaks and valleys were very hard to negotiate, but it was an incredible learning experience for me.
So many key things there, Antonio. And I want to jump backwards a second because you made such a great point about, Pat initially kind of giving you instruction on how he wanted you to play this symbol at this part and this, and I think it's important for people watching to understand that, you know, you made the absolute right call by not going, hey, I'll play the way I want to play because he's the band leader, and he knows what he wants, and I think that's important for, like drummers and all musicians have to understand that when you're hired to be in a band, like you are with in Pat's band, or if it's Steve Gadd and Paul Simon's band or James Taylor's band, it's you have to respect that the person that wrote the music has a certain vision for how he or she wants it played, and again, that's maturity. That's you understanding that and not pulling like not that you ever pull an ego sort of thing, but going, hey, I want to do it this way, and
Of course. Yeah, no, I mean,
yeah,
that's a
yeah, it's
very, very important point because, especially if you're young, you still have to understand that you don't know anything. I
yeah,
mean, no,
exactly.
no matter how good you are, is just, I mean, just looking at Pat or a Chick or Michael Brecker. I mean, when I was still in Mexico playing rock and little clubs, these guys were already famous,
Yeah.
and playing with Miles Davis, Chick. So it's like if I don't take the opportunity to really get off my high horse and learn from these people, I'm wasting such an opportunity. So I really was like a sponge at that moment, and it was hard. It was hard on my ego sometimes, but I had to keep it in check. And I did get so much out of it, musically and personally and financially, just by keeping my mouth shut and just doing what I was told. And you have to be patient, because if your own voice will come out. And that was the really interesting thing about playing with Pat, that you had to play in a little, it was a box, that's why I was mentioning the syntax and the vocabulary. You're
Mm.
playing a very complex but defined language, and within that box, I learned to do everything I wanted to do, and that was a very uh, revelatory part of playing every night with him. That okay, you have to play in this box, but the box is limitless at the same time.
Yeah.
And once you realize that and you learn that, then you're free within the confines or of whatever it is that you're doing. And it's the same thing as if you were playing bebop. It's a language. If you get out of that language, then you're going to sound out of place. So, but that language is infinite. So there's no limits to what you can do as long as you know the rules of the game.
Yeah, that's great, man. That's perfect. Beautifully said. Well, should we play something from Pat that you one of the
Sure.
many
Yeah.
yeah, let's play The Way Up Part 3 from the record The Way Up.
Yeah. The Way Up. I mean, that was to me the most interesting Pat Metheny group album ever made. Not because I'm in it, but because compositionally, what Pat and Lyle Mays did was incredible. They wanted to write a single composition from beginning to end, the whole album, and the motivic development in this piece. What you hear it in the beginning, then you hear it twisted around many times. The melodies come back the in with different harmonies, with different tempo, different rhythms, different time signatures, but you hear the same material, you know, developed in many different ways. And it's sort of what I learned when I was playing. Sorry, when I was playing piano, classical piano, and I was studying Mozart and I was studying Bach and Beethoven, and I was analyzing scores. I was like, okay, I this is really cool, but this has nothing to do with what I'm doing, playing fusion and playing jazz. And then later, of course I understood that it's all the same thing. You know, what they did is the same thing Mozart would do in a symphony, where he would have dun 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 dun
Hmm.
dun 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 dun, and he would twist it around and turn it around and make it major and make it minor and do all these things. And the motivic development is just incredible on this piece. And we would play it straight, and it would last like an hour and a half. And then Pat would quickly introduce the band, and then we would play for another hour and a half, playing just more of his huge catalog. So
Yeah,
that tour was exhausting, but it was incredible.
man. I'm tired thinking about it. I mean, my well, this is a beautiful piece of music right here, and I thank you for choosing this. There's so much to choose from. So we'll play a bit of The Way Up Part 3. Here we go.
Cool. That was the flat ride.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you listen to the flat ride, it's like I'm playing bebop.
Yeah.
So on double time.
Cymbals sound beautiful, Antonio. Just
Yeah, that's a Constantinople medium thin low that I still have.
beautiful, man.
Pat was always a stickler for dynamics. You know, the dynamics were always crazy. Everything we're trying to do.
That's what stands out more than anything to me is the dynamics. Just
So epic. Oh my God.
Man, that is so intense. That is just unbelievable.
But
Oh,
the melodic material, man, is just so beautiful. And the beautiful thing about that piece is that they saved the voices for the very end, which is what we just heard. Like they developed this whole thing for, an hour before you got to that place.
yeah.
And when the voices hit, it was like, woof, the world would open up. It was just so beautiful.
And so a piece like that, Antonio, was that something that was written for you, or did you just you had the the concept, like the form of what the song was, and you wrote your own part for that,
So
or
it was very interesting actually because before they started writing, we went into the studio and they had me just record a bunch of things. So they would say, okay, record something, in 6/8. Um, and the beginning of the piece, which is
Mhm.
so that piece, for example, is based on that beat that I came up with, and in that recording session. And then I did a bunch of other feels and beats and stuff, and then they wrote to a lot of the stuff that I had
I
um,
see. Okay.
played. Yeah,
Yeah.
so a lot of the stuff they wrote has my DNA already in it, which was really cool. And I think they should have given me composer's credit.
I think so
But
too. Yeah.
back then I didn't even think about it. But it's a little too late now.
But that leads to the next thing I'd like to talk to you about, which is you being a composer. And that's really cool that you say that. And it's like you say, you were younger and you weren't thinking along those lines. But when did you start to come into your own as a composer? I'm sure you always wrote things. I'm guessing even at a young age you were writing things and coming up with ideas. But when did you kind of come into your own on that?
Yeah, I mean, I was always, if there was a piano, I would be always playing little melodies and stuff. And when I was studying classical music, I had classical pieces that I was writing.
Yeah,
And it was really around 2007 that I decided I wanted to make an album. And I felt like I had enough experience as a sideman that would inform my band leading and my composing enough that I could put something out that I was not going to be ashamed of.
hmm,
Because up to that moment, I was like, man, I'm not ready. I don't know what to write. And this is, after playing this incredible music with all these insane people, incredible composers. So everything I wrote sounded horrible to me. I mean, just did not sound at that level. But I said, you have to start somewhere, and I decided I wanted to make a band with two saxophones, bass, and drums. On my first album in 2007 called Migration. The core band was Chris Potter, David Sanchez, Scott Colley, and myself. That quartet with no piano, and then I had Chick Corea write two tunes for that album, and then also Pat wrote a tune, and he guested on another tune. So I mean, for my debut album, to have those guys, and actually, Chick wrote a tune called "One for Antonio." Pat wrote a beautiful, epic tune as he always does. So at that point, I was like, I want to keep doing this. I want to keep seeing what I have inside, what I can come up with. And my first outing was very, had a lot of straight ahead, very acoustic sounding. And then, my solo career has been transforming, doing a bunch of different things because I feel like the job of an artist, a composer, is just research in your own identity, your DNA, what you have inside of you, where you come from, why you play the way you play, why you've been listening to the music you've been listening to, how that music has been influencing all the music you've been playing, you've been writing. And I think it's just so much fun to keep researching and your personality and what else can come up with. And if you just sit in front of your instrument and in front of the piano, in front of the computer, and you do, then interesting things are going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what has been happening with my solo career.
Absolutely, man. And I just have to say that for you right out of the gate to have, like Chick and Pat on that record must have been so great for your confidence level to feel that you were on the right track too, because how daunting is that? You're writing your first, you're composing your first piece of music, and it could have been easy to be discouraged if you didn't have the collaboration of some of these people that you wanted to have, if they felt the music wasn't up to it. And man, that speaks volumes to me that, that,
Thank you,
yeah,
Johnny. Yeah, I mean, it was mind-boggling to me that these guys would accept to do that with me. I mean, I remember Pat saying, because Pat doesn't do anybody's project, he's just doing his own thing.
yeah.
But I remember him telling me, I have to do your record. I just have to. And I was like, wow, man, this is
That's so
incredible.
great.
So that speaks volume about those guys, that they were also willing to give me a hand, in my maiden voyage.
Yeah. Well, let's play some more of your compositions. Let's play um, from Bad Hombre, Volume 2.
Ihi. So
Ihi. Okay. Yeah.
yeah, this is not my composition, because this album is based on collaboration. This is my latest album, and that's what I was talking about, the journey,
Yes.
as
Yeah.
an artist. So I wanted to make an album where I'm not a lyricist, but I love, I came from rock and roll, and I wanted to make an album that would be rock and roll mixed with my thing, which jazz I feel like has given me the freedom to do just crazy, interesting projects. So I wanted to ask some of my favorite singer songwriters to see if they would provide me with a song with their own voices in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this one is a crazy one, because speaking about Bela Fleck, which I'm playing with now, he invited me to open for Dave Matthews in Mexico. He does this residency every year in Cancun, and I went over there and we opened up for him with Bella's trio, and then we jammed with Dave, which was amazing. And then when I was doing this record, I thought it was during the pandemic, and I thought, man, it would be so cool if Dave would want to collaborate on it. But this is Dave Matthews. I mean,
Yeah.
but my philosophy is like, just ask, and
Right.
they
Yeah.
can say yes or no, but you
Right.
need to ask. So I remember I texted Bela and I told him, I'm doing this project. Do you think Dave would be into it at all? And he didn't reply for a while. So I was like, okay, maybe he'll see the message later. And then all of a sudden, I get a text from an unknown number. It says, hey, this is Dave. So what do you need? And I was like, oh my God. And I was like, oh shit. I was like completely taken aback, and
Oh
I
man.
wrote to him. I was like, okay, so I'm doing this project with different singers, and I sent them a sample of what I was doing, and I said it would be an honor if you could give me something you have already done, something new, a sketch, anything. Just I would love to have your voice in
Yeah.
this record. And he like, let me think about it. And then he sent me this whole multi-track thing on Pro Tools of a song he did in the early 2000s called Ihi, which was a really cool hypnotic beat, but it was all very linear, 4/4. That's a great beat, great song. But he sent it to me, and I could see there were like 20 tracks of voices of Dave doing the different things, super thick, and I started isolating tracks, and one of them would be the main voice, and another one was doubling, another one was tripling it, and another one would be like just doing weird sounds. I was like, oh my God, there's so much stuff in here. So I just extracted all the voices and started editing them, and I wanted to just do something wildly different than he had given me, and I completely changed the form of the tune. And his thing was in 4/4, and I did some parts in 7/4, some parts in 9/4, some parts in 6/8. So the way I was seeing it, like, okay, these people gave me their baby, compensation was like a baby, and I completely did plastic surgery on the baby. It was kind of unrecognizable. And then, this collaboration was not like, okay, I'm going to do a little bit and then send it to them to see what they think, give me feedback, and then I keep going. No, my mission was, okay, I'm going to finish it with my idea and then send it to them when it's finished, and hopefully they will like it. So also, I wanted to have the drums be a production element, a production tool on this album.
Mm-hmm.
I was always into albums like, So, Peter Gabriel, The Joshua Tree by U2, Sgt. Pepper's, of course, by the Beatles. Uh, Albums with amazing production value. And when you hear these albums up close, and with the headphones, I mean, you hear a million voices, a million
Yeah.
keyboards, guitars, basses, but you only hear one drum set. You hear percussion, but you only hear the one drum set. And I was like, why not do an album where you hear 10 drum sets? And just pan differently with different sounds, doing different parts, coming at different points. So I wanted to do this with this album. And when I had the song kind of mapped out, uh, there was a part in the middle that I was like, man, it would be so cool to have a crazy solo in there. And I happen to have I know a really good guitar player that might be into doing it. So I asked Pat, man, will you play a solo on this thing? And he's like, man, I don't know. Like I said, he doesn't like doing these kinds of projects. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I told him honestly, what I would love is for you to do a solo where nobody would recognize you. Like nobody would know that is you. And then he was super into that idea.
That's
so,
great.
so then he recorded this insane solo in the middle, and it's all noise and stuff that goes great with the song, and all those little comments that you hear along the way, like bending notes. That's all him. So to have Dave Matthews and Pat on the same song on my album is just that was like such an accomplishment that I'm very proud of.
And you should be, man. It's a great tune. I'm going to play it right now. Ehe. Yeah, featuring Dave Matthews and Pat Metheny from Shift. And here we go. Let's play it. Drums sound great.
All in my home studio.
Wow.
Like I quadrupled all those drum parts. So that's in 7. Now it's coming the 9 part. But with the love my mother gave me, drop the devil to the floor. I will now 4. Devil to his knees. I'm gonna drop the devil to his knees. Back to 7. The devil has many more. And with the love that my mother gave me, I'm gonna drop the devil to the floor. I said, drop the devil to his knees. I say, drop the devil to his knees. I say, drop the devil to his knees. I say, drop the devil. Here comes Pat.
We don't survive this. Try to come from the seats and tell her he has to know how to take close to my spread of your friends who know me. And it's surplus. We don't survive this strange evolution. How people have come to believe that we are as great as achievement when rarely we're just a collection of cells overrating ourselves. God, I'm avoiding the truth. Drop the devil to his knees. I said, drop the devil to his knees. And then drop the devil to his knees. I said, drop the devil to his knees. And then drop the devil to his knees.
Oh man, what a tune.
Yeah,
Wow.
and also I played all the instruments. It was a pandemic project, so I was in like a mad scientist in my studio, and I played all the guitars, the basses. I did a bunch of background vocals for it, and like I said, I finished it, and then I sent it to Dave. So when I pressed that send button, and when I sent the track, I was like, "Oh my God, I hope he likes it," because I worked so hard on it and for so long, and then I didn't hear from him for like 2 weeks, and I was like, "Shit," he probably didn't like it because it's so different from the original. And then all of a sudden, my phone rings and it's him, and I'm like, and I pick up. It's like, man, I finally got to hear it. I love it. It's amazing, and it's so different. And not only it's so different, you wrote so much music that I have to give you writing credit. So this is gonna be Ihi 2.0, and he gave me writing credit. I mean, it's amazing.
Oh man, that's fantastic. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. What an experience.
Oh
So the
man.
funny thing about this album is that I'm the least famous person in the whole record, which I love. Yeah, all the collaborators are like huge names, and I'm like, who the hell am I? I love that part.
Oh, that's great. And you're right about Pat Solo, man. It's so screaming. It's so like different than what you think of Pat playing, like it's
Right,
yeah.
because he plays so melodic. He's
Yeah.
a melodic master, and this is just like really, screaming, like you said, and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and I love it that nobody would recognize that it's him.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, we'll keep playing some music here. This is great. And I know you're probably a little tight on time, so we'll keep things moving along here. Should we play a little bit of this from the same record? I think we're past that now with Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor, and maybe there's a little you can give us a little backstory on that too.
Yeah, so this was I think the second track I did on this record, and same thing. I was looking for collaborations, and thanks to the fact that I was nominated for a Golden Globe with Birdman, I went to the
Yes.
Golden Globes, and Trent Reznor and Hans Zimmer were there, nominated as well, and I got to hang out with them, and they were both really really nice to me and complimentary. They said, man, you invented like a new way of scoring that had never been done before. um, and so when I was looking for collaboration, I thought, man, to have the voice of Trent Reznor, Nine Inch Nails, on this record would be amazing. So same thing, I wrote him an email and I just asked, and he said, let me think about it. And then this was during the pandemic, so nobody was doing anything.
Hmm.
Everybody was at home, so everybody had the chance to think about these things that normally nobody would probably give me the time of day. So he sent me this thing on Pro Tools, and I opened it, and it was just a very subtle synth pattern that Atticus Ross, his writing partner, did. And then all of a sudden I hear Trent Reznor's voice come in just naked on top of that. And I was like, oh my God. And I think he thought I was going to do something Birdman-y with like, flowing drums on top of that. But I heard like this Nine Inch Nails anthem, like, you know, metal, almost rock,
Yeah.
but with a lot of dynamics, because they do that too. So I started cutting it and editing it, and I started thinking of how to approach it, and I had the chorus, which was a very clear, like, it's just like rocking thing, but then the verses, I didn't know what it should be, and I had the Yamaha EAD,
Mm.
which you have a little head with this stereo mic that you put on the bass drum, and it has a lot of presets. So I started playing kind of this 8-note pattern, really broken a bunch of times with different sounds, and then I started putting them all one on top of another and muting one while the other one would play, and muting the other one while the other one would play. So, and then panning them widely. So if you hear it with headphones, like, so this took me a long time to
Yeah.
do, but like I said, I wanted to use the drums as the production tool. So this is like a Nine Inch Nails type anthem. And
Yeah.
same thing,
Yeah.
when I sent it to him, he said, "Man, I love it. I love it. I never thought you would be something like that. And let me connect you with my mixing engineer so that he can do the final touches." And that's what ended up in the record.
That's great, man. Yeah. Well, let's give this a listen. I think we're past that now.
I can hear the sound coming out of them, but I don't seem to be able to comprehend. I can feel their bullets fly through me, but I think I've decided they don't work on me. And I guess I should thank you, by the way, for helping me to open my head. And I guess I should thank you and letting it all out, for showing me the way to be free.
No mistake in that.
Headbanger.
It's so thick, It's
Yeah, I recorded two drum sets doing the same thing, and really wide.
yeah.
Both of them like that. And all those hits is what I was talking about, with all those different tracks panned widely.
The sound coming out of them, but I don't seem to be able to comprehend. I can feel their bullets fly through me, but I think I've decided they don't work on me. And I guess I should thank you
That's me doing background vocals.
All right.
A little bit of double bass drum in there.
Playing to the fade out. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's genius, Antonio. It really is. I mean, using, Trent and having, so much diversity in the record, you know what I mean? Just like something that's a departure from what you might
That
normally
was
do.
part of the problem with that record too. That is so diverse that people didn't promoters and festivals and stuff just didn't know of what is this going to be like. But we've been playing this material with my band called Bad Hombre, and Tana, my wife, she's been singing the whole material, so she's made all the tunes hers. But for example, when
Yeah.
we play Trent's tune or Dave's tune, she sings the main part, but then you hear Trent doing background vocals on her, and then you hear Dave doing background vocals on her, because we play with tracks and stuff, and it's a whole production, and it's a lot of fun, that band. But you know, I think the jazz community was a little bit like, oh, this is not jazz, and I did
Yeah.
not really give that recording too much love. But it's just the way it is.
That's to be expected, I guess. But I would think that for you to have that, that kind of satisfaction and that uh, sense of accomplishment for what you did, though, I mean, that goes a long way, I have to think.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
I mean,
yeah,
I
that's
I did it for that, for me, to
yeah,
have those names, and I have also Michelle and the Gorcello and Kimbra, Becca Stevens, Rodrigo and Gabriela, this incredible guitar duo. Tana is also on there. Sonic, I have so many people on the record, and Ana Tijoux from Chile, Lila Downs from Mexico, Silvana Estrada from Mexico, and it was all the same process. They would give me deconstructed tunes, and then I would blow them up, produce them in my own way, and to have that as part of my catalog is just a huge accomplishment for sure.
absolutely. And did you play that last song at PASIC when I saw you last? Do
Yeah,
you remember?
yeah.
I thought so. Yeah, no, I really I remembered it. I have to tell you, I mean, to sit there watching you with Peter Erskine and our friends Joe Testa and Chris Hart, and it was like, and just an amazing concert that you guys put on was just so incredible.
Oh,
Um,
it was nerve-wracking, man. To play for drummers is the worst ever.
it has to be, but
Yeah, I'm like, oh my God, did I just miss, like, that for by half a millisecond? I was just going through my mind, but also, they gave me a lot of energy. It's a lot of fun knowing that all of you guys were there.
yeah, absolutely. And you didn't miss anything. And Peter and I were sitting together just really digging it. I mean, it was so great.
Thank you.
So yeah.
Thank you,
Well,
Johnny.
we get some more music to listen to. Should we and I also want to congratulate you before I forget. I'd made a note just a non sequitur here, but congratulate you on being on the cover of PAS's new magazine, Drum Set. And
Thank you.
speaking of
Thank you.
PASIC, yeah. So I was in
Yeah,
touch
it's
with
an
Joshua
honor.
the other day. Yeah, that's great, man.
Yeah, no, it's you know, I love this interviews because I get to talk about all these little different things that I'm doing, and on that interview, I talk, I get to talk about my film scoring thing, and the this new series that just came out, and all the new projects that I'm cooking, and it's I'm always thankful for the opportunity.
Great. Well, should we, we had another song that we talked about, and we can come back to that, but I thought maybe we'd talk about speaking of a new project, the studio, Apple TV's
Uh,
series that just dropped last night. I watched the first episode, and you scored the entire series, correct?
Yeah, so I was doing this other series called Stags last year. It's a British series, and all of a sudden I got a message from my agent. I have an agent that is just for film, and he said, so apparently Seth Rogen is looking for you because they've been temping their whole new series with stuff from Birdman. They think it
Ah,
works really well.
yeah.
So I was like, oh, really? Okay. And it all happened like in just less than a week. I had a meeting with them on Zoom. I was on tour, and Seth was there, and Evan Goldberg, his writing partner, and they were like, "Yeah, so we really like Birdman. I think it's the best thing ever, and would you want to give it a shot?" I'm like, "Of course, you know." And they sent me the first episode, and I started scoring it, and they luckily they loved everything I did, and yeah, it's 10 episodes, and it's very drum and percussion heavy. But I did Birdman 10 years ago. And
Yeah.
when I did Birdman, it was all improvised. I had no time whatsoever to sit with it. I did it in the studio with the director. It's not like they gave me the film and I was able to work on it for months like you normally would do with a film score. So they wanted me to be very in the moment, which
Mm,
I think it
hmm.
would work great for that film. But since then, I've learned so much, about film scoring, and I've done a few movies, a few TV shows. This is my fifth TV series. So I've learned really the art of scoring with drums and how to pace the drums and how to work with the dialogue, how to work with movement, and it works like a charm with comedy, especially if it's dark comedy, because it creates a, a lot of tension. Drums can do that, but also the way they punctuate. They can punctuate. It's super effective. When just like ping, just a little thing when they
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
something, or leave space when they say something, and it doesn't really spell out like, okay, this is supposed to be sad, this is supposed to be happy. It's kind of neutral, but it gives a constant energy, and I think it just this is in terms of scoring with drums. I think this is by far my most sophisticated work for sure.
Wow. Well, congratulations on it. We watched it last night, the first episode, and I think there's still another one that's viewable. And Kelly said to me, not that it was. She said it reminded her of Birdman, and that explains it. What you just said, as far as the sort of concept that you went with,
Yeah,
because
it's the
they,
sound, of
yeah,
course. I
yeah,
mean,
exactly,
there
yeah,
was no other movie that was scored pretty much solely with drums. So of course it's going to remind you of that. But on that on Birdman, it was just like I would do, just a couple of passes, and then they edited, and that was that. Here, I there's same thing. I use the drums as a production thing. So the drum parts are incredibly thick. I sometimes I have five drum sets doing different things plus percussion, and then there's a few episodes that also have horns and have strings and a lot of instrumentation. So it was very challenging, and the pace of one of those shows is breakneck. So you have all these deadlines that you have to comply with. But the thing is, most people that score a lot, they don't tour the way I tour. So
yeah.
sometimes it was very stressful because I would be
I'll
on
bet.
tour, and then I knew that I would come home and it would be like a full week of just, I would be probably pulling like 14, 15-hour days,
Yeah.
just trying to finish everything. And then I would give them the material, and then when I was on tour, I would start getting notes like, okay, we want to change this, we want to change that. So I would have my laptop and I would try to edit on the road. It's a little stressful, but it pays off.
Wow. And so can I ask, Antonio, when are you scoring a couple of episodes at a time? Are they giving you're not doing the whole, you don't have the every
No.
episode. Yeah. So it's just you're sort
Yeah,
of
they
going,
start releasing them as they go because they were still filming when I started scoring.
That's what I
So
figured.
they would
Okay.
give me, and I would ask for locked episodes, because what happened on the first episode is that they gave it to me and they still weren't sure about many things. So I scored the whole thing, and then they changed a lot of stuff, and that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
So I asked them, even if you only give me 4 days to score it, I rather work, you know, for those 4 days nonstop, but have the locked episode, than to give me a very early episode, a very early version that you don't know if that's going to be the final one, because then that really makes me waste a lot of time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's jump into this. This is great. So this is Too Close to the Edge, and this is from the studio,
Yeah, episode
Antonio's
10. They wanted
episode.
something very different and big for episode 10, and the tension just keeps building and building. So I had the idea of start modulating up by a whole step, and also speeding things up every time like a new section of the episode would come in. So that's what you'll hear.
Okay. And thanks for letting me know this is episode 10. So this is the last episode of the series, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
All
the
right.
music from, yeah.
All right, here we go. Man. Man, the sound is just so great. Sonically, you got such a great sound, such an
Thank
organic
you.
sound. Yeah.
And it's amazing what plugins can do, man. I mean, I did all those horns and everything at home. It's really incredible what you can do nowadays with technology. And I do everything myself. I have no engineer or anything. I'm just by myself in my little studio, and then once I have all the stems ready, then I send them for mixing, and that's it. But it's a very artisanal operation that I have going.
Yeah. I mean, you really know your stuff. I mean, I mean, I was just really listening to that today, like listening to the bass drum. Just you got such a great, like authentic, you know, big band kind of boomy, organic sounding bass drum that you think of, from like,
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing about having your own studio, that I'm like, okay, for this episode, they really wanted something jazzy and kind of big bandy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like, okay, switch all the drums, tuning, record a bunch just to make sure that the tuning was right with the horns, on the same key, so it takes a long time, but it's just such a learning experience every time I do something like this. And that ends up informing my albums when I work on them, and then my albums keep informing also my film scoring. So it's a really cool thing.
That's great. Well, let's play a couple more. They're just short little segments that we'll play. This is It's Happening.
Yeah, this is when from the first episode. When it seems like Seth Rogen's character is gonna get his dream job, and it's like they're all freaking out because it's supposed to happen.
That's right. Yeah. No, I got to tell everybody, check this out. And not just because of it being a great show, but because Antonio's, no, but no, it's really great. I mean, it has all the bases covered. It's a great show and it's got great music, but I remember this from last night's episode. Check it out. It's happening.
Yeah, so there must be like four drum sets in there at different times.
Wow. Sounds like a marching band. It has that kind of power.
But very acoustic sounding.
Yeah, yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah, so it's a lot of fun to it makes total sense when you see it with the image because all those little pauses, things that they say is just punctuation marks to leave a little space for very important things that are happening in the dialogue or the movement. So it works really well with with comedy.
Yeah. Can we play one more? We'll play one more
Sure.
And I know you got a plane to catch, so this is That's Your Offer. All right, with a question mark. That's Your Offer? Also from the studio. And do you know which episode this is from, Antonio?
I think this might be from maybe one. I think it's maybe one or two.
Maybe from one. Okay.
Remember. Yeah.
All right, here we go. Man, I think this is great because it gives people an idea and a peek inside of what it's like and what it takes to compose music for TV and film and yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
mean it's very different with each project. I mean this they really wanted it to be very drum centric, and of course usually the stuff I do for scoring is very drum centric, but this was has been the most drum centric since Birdman, I guess. Well, I also Get Shorty. When I did Get Shorty, that was also just drums pretty much.
yeah.
But this one has some episodes that are very heavy on instrumentation. My favorite episode is episode 4, which they call it in the beginning they were calling it the noir episode because it's all a mystery. They're trying to solve a mystery the whole time, and I got to do like very lush strings, and it's
Oh,
all
cool.
mystery. So that one took a long time, but I'm very proud of that one.
I can't wait to see it. Well, I so appreciate you spending so much time today, Antonio.
Time flies when you're having fun, Johnny B.
It does. This has been so great. And I so thank you for being here today. And everybody watching, please give a big hand to Antonio Sanchez,
Uh,
my dear friend for 30
my
years.
my honor. Thank you, and congratulations on this, man. To keep this going, it's great, and it gives all kinds of musicians a really beautiful inside look at all the drummers' minds and styles and approaches. So, thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Antonio. I appreciate that. Hang with me if you would for one sec. We'll end the stream and say
Of
goodbye to
course.
everybody. Thanks for watching, everybody. And we'll see you real soon. And again, a big hand for Antonio Sanchez. All right, that's my show. If you enjoyed it, give it a like, leave a comment, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And you can also download the podcast on all podcast platforms. A reminder that Live from My Drum Room t-shirts and hoodies are available, and 100% of the proceeds go toward a scholarship I've created with the Percussive Arts Society. Information on ordering Live from My Drum Room merch is in the show notes, and you can also email or text me with any questions at livefrommydrumroom@gmail.com. Thanks to everyone who's bought a t-shirt and a hoodie so far. You're supporting a great cause, and I really appreciate it. And remember, no drummers are harmed on any show. And drummers, when in doubt, leave it out. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you soon.